Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. I hope everyone had a safe and sinful 4th of July. Today's video features true scary home invasion stories. Sit back, relax, stay sinful. Story number 1. It all started over a year ago, living in my current small neighborhood. It was unusually hot in our house for October, and my sister figured it would be a good idea to keep her window open for some air. She was doing homework and I was getting ready for bed when suddenly she bursts into my room. She frantically says that she heard some noises outside, sounds of leaves crunching under a person's steps. I believed it to be an animal, so I walk into her room and stay there for no more than 5 minutes, until I heard leaves crunching too. We quickly glance out the window only to hear the sound of someone running away into the woods. But that wouldn't be the end of the story. During the winter, I enjoy exploring the woods towards the back of my house, climbing trees and traveling further back to the fields. I remember the events very clearly. It had just snowed that night, first snowfall of winter, and I was more than excited to head out there. I did so and climbed my usual tree to get a good view of the property. I gave a cursory glance around me and at the ground when I noticed something strange. Footsteps leading away from my house. This wouldn't be weird as long as the beginning of the footsteps didn't end, pointing straight at my house. I tracked down the footsteps up to a point where there was a rusty wire fence covered in snow where they disappeared. October 2017, it started up again. I was laying in my bed pitch dark, not a light shining through my room when I heard it. My doorknob turning and my door creaking open. My heart stopped. Every single possibility of what was rushing through my mind. Keep in mind my door is always shut when I go to sleep. Since I was covered by my blanket, I quickly shot my sister a text. "Did you just come in my room?" She replied with a sharp, "No, I'm all the way in Hillard." My heart began pumping. Faster, faster. I slowly snuck my hand under my pillow and grabbed my police baton, sent a text to my dad and waited. My dad came in my room minutes later with a knife, shot on the lights, and I jumped out of bed. We searched the entire house and found nothing. Alarms set and all doors locked. Impossible. There's no way that happened otherwise. My dad and mom were asleep and my cat would have opened it much faster if it jumped at the doorknob. You best believe I didn't sleep a second that night. Fast forward to December. My relatives are in town staying for a week in the basement. We turn on the alarm and all head to sleep. I stayed up gaming. In the morning around 2:30 or 3, my uncle slowly opened his eyes with a feeling of being watched. His eyes adjusted a bit to the dark before he saw a guy, average height, scrawny, hair flowing in the wind and shivering, looking inside their room through the window. My uncle screamed and they grabbed the baby before taking off upstairs. That morning I was informed of what happened. I looked for footprints and saw only the smallest sign of a footprint. A front toe print made by what I could only assume was a sneaker. My uncle gave me more details. Without me telling him, I looked for footprints and he said the guy was leaning to the left looking in. The footprint matched his story. The left print had a thin line of dirt anyone could have shimmied across. Now that leads to tonight. The night I could swear he or whatever it was had been in our house. I couldn't sleep. Life has been stressful lately, and I was up all night until I tried getting rest. Every night I've had dimly lit Christmas lights hanging in the room, until tonight. I figured the lights must have been interfering with my sleep, so I unplugged them and headed off to sleep. I had my pillow over my head and I started to drift off until it happened. A quick strum of my guitar and the sound of something falling over, with the desperate attempt to stop it from hitting the ground, filled my room. The sound ignited my heart rate. I could feel the presence of someone in my room. Realizing I'd left my baton on my desk, I did the next logical thing. Pretended I was asleep. I tried and laid there for what felt like hours, when in reality it was only a few minutes until I heard a whimper come from my sister's room. Imagining this may be the day everyone in my family was silently murdered. But me, I gathered all the courage I had. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and grabbed my baton. I busted into my sister's room and screamed, "Hey!" only to see they were unharmed. My sister asked me what the hell I was doing, and I just stood there, looking into the pitch black of my room, and cried. I've never in my life felt the overwhelming emotion of believing my family was going to be taken from me until today. I sit here in my chair writing this in hopes to document my experiences and try to come to some logical conclusion. All I can come up with is that there's some guy stalking my family and perhaps sneaking into our rooms at night. If anything else happens, post it to this thread. I'm going to sleep. Story number 2. It was the summer before my freshman year of high school. The year was 1998. My parents and younger brother were out of town, and I was basking in the freedom of being home alone for an entire day. I had spent most of that time shut up in my upstairs room watching TV while I chatted on the phone with my friends. Because three-way calling. Oh my God. After a few hours of MTV watching and phone chatting, I decided it was time to relax in a bubble bath and read a Stephen King novel, because that was my favorite pastime. My bedroom and the bathroom were side by side on the second story of a very large 3-story house. Our house sat on the edge of a small town. My dad was the local pastor of this town, so we would have random people show up at any hour of the day or night. Most of the time they were in need of food and or money, and sometimes they could be very persistent. I was instructed that when home alone I was not to answer the door. Just stay out of sight until the people left, then go on about my day. This strategy had worked for years, so why change it now? On this particular day, all had been quiet. The bathroom was upstairs and out of sight of any doors. It was the only interior door that was locked, so I always felt relatively safe in there. I shut off my TV and hung up the phone. I then proceeded to take a nice hot bubble bath. Once the tub was filled, I climbed in and started reading my book. I got a chapter in when all hell broke loose. I heard the sound of breaking glass coming from the kitchen below me, the room to the left at the foot of the stairs. Also the room with the back door, in which it consisted of a giant double pane of really old glass. My mother was always scolding us for shutting the door too hard. She was convinced we would break it. The sound of breaking glass is followed by a loud voice, a man's voice, a man that was not my father. I got out of the tub as quickly and quietly as possible, grabbed a towel, closed the bathroom door, and slid the lock over. I stood at the door listening for what felt like an eternity. Then again from the kitchen, a man's voice. This time quickly followed by a woman's voice that was not my mom. Jesus Christ, 2 intruders were in my kitchen, and there I stood butt naked, dripping wet, and with nothing but a bath towel to protect me. What was I supposed to do? I looked around the bathroom for weapons, and the best I could come up with was a plastic-handled toilet plunger. At this point, I realized that I hadn't heard anyone for a few minutes. I decided I was going to sneak to the top of the stairs and listen. Maybe they left after realizing we didn't have any items with any street value. Armed with the toilet plunger, I unlocked the bathroom door and tiptoed to the top of the stairs. Within seconds, I heard them talking in the kitchen. I decided I needed an evacuation plan and better weapons. I tiptoed back into the bathroom and relocked the door. I knew I didn't have much time until they would come to explore or rob the upstairs. I knew that when I got to the bathroom of the stairs, I would be in full view of the kitchen, and the stairs creaked so they would definitely hear me coming. I also knew that the base of the stairs led to the front door if I made a quick right, so I could get down and out the door before they realized what was going on. But if they heard me coming, I might have to fight for my life. I needed to find a good weapon because it was going to be a 2-on-1 fight. I snuck back out of the bathroom and into my bedroom. The whole time I heard them in the kitchen. The best thing I could come up with in my bedroom was a lighter and a bottle of hairspray. I'll melt these fuckers' faces off. I went back to the top of the stairs and listened again. They were still down there. I counted to 3 and made a run for it, lighter and hairspray at the ready. I reached the landing and turned to glance at the kitchen. That's when everything became glaringly obvious. Sitting in the middle of the kitchen table was my father's pager for the squad. The male EMT was telling the female dispatcher that they had just arrived at the hospital. I let out a huge sigh of relief and started laughing hysterically at my own stupidity. The door wasn't broken and I was still home alone. Story number 3. My boyfriend and I, as well as our good friend, were living in an apartment in our city. To initially get into the large complex, there are security gates that need an access key, then another security door to get to the stairwell of ours, and our neighbors' apartments, then the unit doors themselves. There had been a few occasions where I'd come home and realized the door to the stairwell was just sitting on the frame without actually closing. I always tried to make an effort to close it properly as I came and went. On this night, my boyfriend, flatmate, and another friend were having drinks at our place on a weeknight, and it was about 11 when our friend who lives up the road took off for the evening. We went to bed like normal. It must have been 2 in the morning and I woke up suddenly because I thought I could hear someone treading on the carpet. Shortly thereafter, I was confronted by the silhouette of a guy standing in our bedroom. I couldn't make him out because my eyes were adjusting to the light, but I immediately thought it was our flatmate. We must have his car keys. It's funny how the brain tries to make sense of a strange situation. To me, the silhouette looked remarkably like our flatmate, who was quite a small guy of similar height and build. I stared at him and he slowly backed out of the room. Then I saw him peer around the door again. I couldn't make out his face and I said, "Yeah, Josh, what do you want?" It was the lack of response that scared me the most. My flatmate would have just explained what he was doing. He left the doorway and my heart started pounding. So I elbowed my partner who woke up and said, "I think there's someone in the house." I'm surprised at how quickly he got up, still half asleep. I watched him leave the room for the lounge, and then really loudly he said, "What the fuck? Who the fuck are you? Get the fuck out of my house." Turns out this guy was hiding around the wall waiting. I don't think he was expecting to be confronted by my large partner. This guy then bolted for the door, which he left on its hinges while saying, "Sorry." I started screaming. It was insane how close a stranger had been and how vulnerable we both were. My boyfriend said it was an Asian man. Turns out he had gone into our flatmate's room first because the door she usually keeps closed was open. He sleeps with his headphones on and hadn't noticed a thing. Looking back, I think we should have called the police right away, but we left it until the next morning. There was nothing missing. I think he was just an opportunist. We were told that security found that he had checked all the doors along the stairwell until he got to ours, which was stupidly left unlocked. Normally, my boyfriend is really good about locking the doors. We ended up with a deadbolt as well as a chain lock, and we never take home security lightly anymore. We have since moved on. I have no idea what he was after. He got in through the faulty door to the stairwell and must have jumped our gate. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future videos. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. Until we meet again, stay sinful.